Hey everyone, Robot here. Before we get into this next video, let me share the reason for it. I don't know if you've experienced this, but there's been this period of time that started about 6 months ago, where it feels like every other match I play is in the Nostromo Wreckage map. Maybe not every other map, but this map comes up constantly, which wouldn't be an issue except I don't like this map, to the point where my brain doesn't make the effort to study it or remember which areas are decent to take chase, or where gens spawn, or where basement spawns. So, since I was playing it so much, I decided to come up with a video to force myself to learn it so I can play it better, and maybe help a couple people that are on the same mindset as me. So,
here we are.
In this video, we'll go over all you need to know to play the Nostromo Wreckage map effectively and efficiently as Survivor. We'll cover how to find your way around the map, how to find gens easily, how to find the exit gates, and areas to loop. Let's get started. This video is part of the map guides that I'm putting together. So far, I've made guides for Leary's, Hawkins, the Forgotten Ruins, Midwich, and the game. In case you're interested in any of those, you can click on the card on the top right corner of your screen for the playlist to these guides. I have created timestamps that will cover the main topics for this video, so if you're interested in something specific, you can skip to that part if you like. First, let's cover how to find your way around the map. Honestly, the Nostromo Wreckage has some very noticeable landmarks that help you know where you are at all times. The main landmark is of course the Nostromo ship wreckage. For the purposes of this video, we'll call this area main, following the same principle that most maps in DBD have a main building. I've created a map layout with clock callouts to help us here. We'll call main 12 and go from there. Main has a few interesting areas which we'll cover when we talk about areas to loot. One thing I want to mention before we move on is that to the right of main's entrance, coming from the middle of the map, we have one of two spots where basement can spawn. Making our way to 1, we usually have some type of jungle gym with a pallet and window in some form or another. We also have a ramp that leads to the right side of main. As we continue to 2, we find these peculiar arches. These seem to always spawn here, or at least consistently. Continuing our tour, we get to 3, where you'd also find some type of jungle gym with a pallet and window, or maybe TNL walls. Next we get to 4, which usually has nothing other than a random structure that you can vault. This then connects to 5, or the Narcissus ship, which is a small ship wreckage. I mark this on the map with an end for Narcissus. You can actually go inside this ship and find the second spot on the map where basement can spawn. Then we move on to 6, where we typically don't have much other than more rock structures, sometimes with arches, and maybe a filler pallet. But sometimes you don't even get that. So this can be kind of a dead zone. 7 typically has a filler pallet but no other meaningful structures. Same with 8. A filler pallet here is typical, but it also depends on the random tile generator, so you may not get that here sometimes. 9 usually spawns a jungle gym or TNL walls or other type of familiar tile. And it's a good area to take chase because 10 typically also spawns another tile, such as a jungle gym 4 lane or TNL walls. Next to 10, we also have a nearby ramp that lets you enter main. And 11 is a dead zone, so not much going on there, but we do have a very unsafe pallet close to main. Next, let's talk about how to find gens. Starting in main, you'll have one gen that will always spawn in the main area, right next to the circular table. Usually, a second gen spawns in main, and there are 2 potential spots for it. One in the hallway close to the ramp that leads to 1, and one on the back of main, close to the drop that leads to 11. From there, gen spawns vary, but they are decently spread out. Here's a visual aid that shows where gens typically spawn for the rest of the map. You'll see gens at 1, or between 1 and 2, at 3, at 6, between 7 and 8, and at 9 or 10. They won't all spawn in the same location every time, but you'll typically find them in the vicinity of those clock callouts. Alright, and that brings us to how to find the exit gates. I've only seen the exit gates spawn in 2 spots, by 2 and by 9. I've never seen any other variations, so if you look for gates in those two places, you have a really good chance to find them. And lastly, let's talk about areas to loop. First, let's cover the good pallets. And to be honest, the only really good pallet is in main, right by the round table. To get the best use out of it, run around the table. If you run out of loops around the table, you can also try to play the short side. But at that point, it's tricky to avoid getting hit. But if you're healthy, it is another way to waste a bit of time even if you take a hit. Besides this pallet, there are no real GAT pallets in this map like you typically find in other maps. This map doesn't even have a shack, even it being an outdoor map. I guess the Narcissus could be considered shack, but it doesn't have the typical layout as the shack that we know. There are, however, a couple of useful areas in main that can be helpful in chase. The first we'll cover are the corner filler pallets. The best way to play these is similar to how we play them in Hawkins, pre-drop and run around them. There are usually two that you can connect. They don't always spawn in exactly the same spot, so I recommend you do a quick check of pallet location early in the game so you know which direction to run. Depending on the killer you're versing, you could get some value out of these and a couple of loops around them. Just be careful to keep your check spots and don't just run around them without making sure the killer isn't double backing, since you could lose distance and give the killer a chance to catch up to you faster. The other two pallets that may spawn in main are not very useful. Depending on the map variation, you could get a pallet to the right of the main room, but it's very unsafe. You just have to play it like any other unsafe pallets in any other map, try to win 50s or play for the stun. The other pallet that could spawn is next to the ramp that leads to 1. If you run it as a pass-by filler, you can get good value since this pallet can be used as one of the corner pallets we covered earlier. You can pre-drop and keep running around the long hallways. You also have a very weak vault by the drop that leads to 11. No real good way to play this one, but just wanted to point it out. A lucky Lithe may be useful, but other than that, try not to get caught off guard in this area. It's not safe. You also have a vault that leads to the 2 side of main. The stagger for this one can be punishing, so keep that in mind if you don't have balanced landing. The next section we'll cover are the steam tubes we have around the hallways in main. At the beginning of the match, the steam will be ready to release, and you can tell this is the case by looking at the steam animation, which will look like this. Also, there is a panel close to the tubes that will show 2 sets of green lights that lets you know the steam is ready to be released. The steam releases after someone walks or runs by the tubes. This can be any of the survivors or the killer. About a second after someone activates it, the tubes release steam that will hinder whoever walks by it at the time it releases. This is helpful to keep in mind if you're being chased by the killer and the vapor is ready to be released when you go by it. It will either hinder the killer if they follow behind you, or they'll need to run around the small structure to avoid the hindrance, giving you a bit of distance. Once the steam releases, the status of the panel will change, showing sets of red lights instead of green. And also the light below the tubes where the steam release will turn red. The steam can be reset by pulling on the lever below the status lights. There is a bit of a cooldown to be able to reset the steam after it releases, so you'll need to wait a few seconds before you can pull the lever. One neat thing about these panels, there are 2 of these, is that the lever will reset the steam in both locations if both have been used, and if only one of the locations has released steam, either lever will reset either of the 2 locations. If you see the steam ready to be released, don't walk by it if you don't need to release it, so you can save it for later use by you or a teammate. Here's an example of a chase when the steam was actually helpful. Pig was chasing me and I made it to the steam tubes. She didn't go all the way through it, but the steam reached her. You can't see the hindrance because I was not looking behind me at the time it hit her, but you can tell Pig was hindered since I gained distance and I made it to one of the corner filler pallets. Now let's cover the rest of the areas. The 2 areas that spawn familiar tiles are 9 and 10, and 1, 2, and 3. The reason I like these areas is because tiles will range from normal jungle gyms with a pallet and window to TNLs or Ormond tiles. Ideally, connecting the 2 strong tiles in each area, you can extend chase time. At first, these tiles may look a little weird because of the rock formations, but as you see them more often, they start to make more sense, and you can loop them like any other tiles in outdoor maps. Moving on to the next area, there is typically a 4-lane by mid towards 8. This is one of my favorite tiles in this map because unlike a regular 4-lane in other outdoor maps, where the walls don't let you see the killer, The rocks here are not as tall in some sections, so you can actually follow the killer's movements better. There are also spaces between the rubble and rocks around the tile, so you can use those also to gain visibility on the killer. And one last thing to note is that there is this L structure with a pallet on the side you don't typically see on a regular 4-lane, that you can go around a few times to waste some of the killer's time. From this 4-lane you can typically connect chases to filler pallets that usually spawn by 8, or closer to the center of mid and between mid and main building. Not the greatest, but these filler pallets can come in handy. There's also a small opening here with a little bit of a drop, but keep in mind this drop doesn't trigger balanced landing since the drop is not very high. Now let's move on to what I consider the weakest areas in the map, which are 6, 4, and the Narcissus ship. 6 is sometimes a dead zone, as I mentioned earlier, with maybe a filler pallet. 4 doesn't have much other than a vault, and the Narcissus does have a pallet, but it's not very safe. Now of course you can find ways to waste the killer's time here, but it's just a weak area overall. One thing I'll mention is you can run around the Narcissus close to edge map and keep good check spots to see where the killer is coming from. You can use this to waste some time since the shape of the ship allows for good visibility around corners. Also, this area is far from main building and other areas where gens spawn, so even if you go down here, it wastes the killer time since after downing you, then they'll have to travel back into the map. That pretty much covers tiles in this map. But before we end the video, I want to share some bonus information about the map. There's a secret room in main. To be able to open this room, you need a keycard that's in the possession of a dead astronaut that spawns in the map. The location of this astronaut varies, but you can try looking for him at the following locations: inside the Narcissus, next to one of the ramps on the front side of main towards mid, next to the ramp on the left side of main towards 11, next to the ramp on the right side of main towards 1, and by the wreckage of the ship by 6 edge map. There may be other locations, but those are the ones I managed to find. Once you find this astronaut, crouch next to him, and this will give you a prompt to take the keycard. After you've taken the keycard, go back to main, and right off the area where the round table is, you'll see a panel with some multicolored lights. Stand in front of it, and this will give you a prompt to hack the panel. Punch in the following code: left, down, up, right, and this will then open the door next to the panel, which will give you access to the secret room and a chest inside. Be aware there's another dead astronaut that spawns in the map that does not have the keycard. The difference between the two astronauts is the Decoy one is headless, while the one with the keycard still has his head attached to his body with his helmet on. Also, there's a Facehugger that jump scares you when walking by the window that lets you see into the lab, which is not really useful, but just kinda cool. If you'd like to learn how to play other maps or other tips on how to play Survivor, you can click on the thumbnails on the left hand side of your screen. If you'd like to be notified when I upload my next video, you can subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.